Okay, everyone got the message?
Yep.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. My name's Stacy and I work at the Iowa City Public Library, and I'm excited to be here to talk to you about Libby. I know you all just turned off your cameras, but who here has used Libby before? Anybody? Yeah, wonderful. And um, Okay, I'll just get started. So the free Libby app is the easiest way to get started with ebooks, digital audiobooks, and now digital magazines from our library. Libby has all of the ebooks and e-audiobooks that the library has, and over half of our magazines that are available digitally. There's a separate app called Flipster that has a different selection of magazines, which is split up based on publisher agreements. So Libby is available for Android, iOS, and Windows 10. You could also use Libby in a web browser at libbyapp.com, but we only recommend that if you're going to do that on a home computer that will remember your login, because the steps you go through to establish your home library, you wouldn't want to do that every time. And then if you're using a public computer to get to Libby, we'd recommend the Overdrive website. So if you have some different configuration that you want us to help problem solve with you, please let us know. But the default will kind of imagine that you're using Libby on a portable device like a smartphone or a tablet. There are some e-readers that may be able to load Libby as an app, others cannot. And so if you have one of those e-readers, we can either talk at the end of the class or please contact the library for individual help. So in Libby, you can have a total of 5 ebooks or e-audiobooks checked out at a time. And that doesn't count magazines, which are unlimited. You can also be on hold for up to 10 ebooks or audiobooks in Libby, and that's separate from the limits that are on your library account with your card. Let's see, I'm just gonna mute somebody here. So if you're anxious to get a popular book in any form, feel free to put holds on both the print copy, the ebook, the e-audiobook, and see what comes in fastest. Nothing will stop you from doing that. Let's see. And then before I start my demonstration, a few more points. I just want to talk about the names you'll encounter. So Overdrive is the company that we pay to provide the ebooks for our community. And they had an original app called Overdrive, and then they developed the Libby app several years ago. It's just a different interface for the exact same collection of books. And Libby is where Overdrive's putting their development now, so this is the one that we'll focus on. If you are used to using the Overdrive app, it should still work for you fine. Another name that you might encounter is Digital Johnson County. I'm just going to mute everybody quick. This is where the public libraries in Iowa City, Coralville, and North Liberty have pooled our resources in buying ebooks for the metro area. And so if you live in Iowa City or have an Iowa City card, you are part of Digital Johnson County. Okay, what do you need to get started with Libby? Your library card number, your library PIN or password, and if you need help figuring those out, you can always contact the library on our website, in person, on the phone. You also need to have an account in good standing, which means less than $10 in fines. And then you have to be a resident of Iowa City, Hills, Lone Tree, University Heights, or rural Johnson County. If you live in Coralville or North Liberty, you can still benefit from this class. You would just use your local card to get logged in. Once you have all of that information, then installing the Libby app from your app store is the next step. That's the Apple App Store, Google Play Store, the Windows Store. So any questions before I start sharing my screen? Okay. So there's a question, do I use my Coralville card? It depends on where your address is. So if you if you live in Coralville, then yes, you would have to use a Coralville Public Library card. Okay, yeah, that's great. So we hate to make this distinction because it seems excluding, but if you live in Coralville, you are totally welcome to have an Iowa City card and check out physical things, but the contracts that we have for our online resources limit those to just people who live in our town. So we're happy to have Coralville residents be part of the library, but for the online things, you'll use your Coralville card. Any other questions before I start sharing? Once I start sharing, I won't be able to see the chat or raised hands very well, so please feel free to interrupt me and I'll be glad to answer questions as we go. All right, let me start my share. And since I'm sharing my phone, sometimes it takes a minute to recognize it. Here we go. Hopefully you can see this welcome screen from Libby. This is what you'll see the first time that you open up the Libby app after you've downloaded it. And the prompts here are pretty friendly. They look like text messaging, so you'll just answer their questions. Yes, I have a library card. And then I like to just search for the library. I'll start typing Iowa City. And you'll see that Digital Johnson County with Iowa City and the other branches are Coralville and North Liberty comes right up. And this is the start of the browsing screen, but it says, let's take a moment to get signed in. So this is my library. Type in my card number, which hopefully I'll do without any typos. And then my PIN number. And as I said, if you forget any part of that, we're always helping people with that on the phone or online, so don't hesitate to give us a call. So here we are. This is my name. It could already tell who I was. I already had some checkouts and some holds going, and so it's recognized that and pulled them in right away. There's a chance to rename the card here. This is a feature you'd use if you were gonna put multiple family members on your same device. You could share and you could rename your cards and have more than one card listed in here at once. Okay, so that's the account part. It also gives me a second to check if I'm a Kindle reader. So there's more than one place where it's giving us a chance to indicate that we're using a Kindle. And so right off the bat, if you are, then it will it'll adjust some of its settings so that it assumes that you're going to use that process. There's another place where you can indicate that you only want to search for books that are compatible with Kindles. And I'm not sure if this does that since I don't have a Kindle, but I'll point that out as we're going through. So I'm going to skip that because I'm going to read right directly off of Libby. And then here we are. So let's look at these navigation options along the bottom. They did change recently. Libby did an update in the last month or so. So if you're used to using Libby, there used to only be 3 navigation buttons. And so we'll talk through the 5. The bottom left is a little magnifying glass. This is for searching. I'll come back and do a demonstration of how that works. To get out of the search, I'm going to hide it. The next option over, which I'm in right now, is supposed to look like a library card, although to me it looks like a battery. This section is for browsing everything that's available to you. This is the way to see every ebook, e-audiobook, and digital magazine that you'll have access to. And we'll come back to that one as well, and I'll show you the different ways that you can do your browsing. The icon in the middle is the little Libby girl. This is a place where you can get to your settings, get to help and support, and they often have little tips. So if you were going to add add another library card to your account. You could do that here. If you wanted to get some help or support, this is the place you'd find it. And I can hide this one as well. The fourth icon over here looks like a stack of books. This is my shelf. So this is what I have checked out and what I have on hold right now. So if I scroll through here, you see I have 3 loans right now. I've got a book, an audiobook, and a magazine at the moment. And if I tap on the holds, it shows me the hold that I'm waiting for. And we'll talk through what all of these little icons mean in a little bit. Some people wonder about holds altogether for electronic content, right? It might seem a little bit weird that it should be able to be duplicated as many times as possible. But many ebooks follow the same model as physical books, where only one person can have a copy at a time. So don't be surprised if there are holds for newer popular things. And then the 5th icon at the bottom is a clock. This is my timeline. So this shows what I have checked out and kind of all of my activity on Libby, but it only goes back as far as when I added the app. So before I deleted and re-added Libby today, I went several weeks back and I could see all the books that I had read. So a couple of things to say about that. If this bothers you, you can come up to actions. If you like it, you could export your timeline if you wanted to share that with somebody or, add it into some other list or way that you keep track of your reading. You could do that here. If you don't like the idea that it's keeping track, you can disable the activity recording here and remove the ones that will show up within Libby, but that only disables the recording in Libby. There is still the Overdrive website that's keeping track of what you have checked out electronically. The library staff don't have access to that. You just have access to it. If that bugs you, we could look into whether you can turn that off at the website. But just letting you know that you've got some privacy options, or most people find this very handy. They'll want to remember what they've read in the past and if they've already read a certain book. So let us know if you have questions about that part. So those are the main navigation points. Let's go back to the far left and do a search. So let's say you want to read a certain book and you don't care if it's an ebook or a print copy. You could do that search just in the library catalog on our website to see all of the ebooks, e-audiobooks, print books, books on CDs all together. Whoops. The only thing that wouldn't show up in the catalog search are the digital magazines, but everything else that's in Libby should be listed there. But if you know you want to read something on your phone, then you can start a search here and just see what's available. So you can search by title, author, a topic word, like, divorce or climate change or whatever you're interested in, or even an award. I searched for Man Booker and it brought up prize winners for that as well. If I search for the Midnight Library, you see it gives me some options, some suggestions that come up. Another thing before I hit search is these 3 dots next to Digital Johnson County. You might not think to tap there, but this gives you a chance to limit your search. So if I only wanted to see a certain format, if I only wanted the books and not the audiobooks, I can do that here, or I can come back so that it shows me everything. And then another way of limiting that I like is to only see what's available right now, because I am often not interested in waiting on a hold list. I want to just read something today. But I'm going to leave all of these as wide open as can be, and we'll do our search. Those options, before I forget, no, I'll come back to that later. So let's just look at my search results. This might look like a repeat, but there are ways to tell which one is a book, which like this top one is, and which one is an audiobook. So what I look for, the book covers are rectangular, whereas these are squares. The little headphone icons here and the number of hours tell me that this is an audiobook. And then some other cues are that I can read a sample for a book where it's, text written out, whereas the audiobook asks me if I want to play a sample. I still think that they could make that a little more obvious. So if that bugs you and you're looking for just one kind or the other, you can come into preferences. And these are similar to those search limits that I showed you before, but when you apply them for the format or for the availability, which are my favorite ones, or under support, this is where you can indicate you only want Kindle compliant books. Once you apply those settings or the preferences, it holds on to them in between all of your sessions. So that either could work in your favor if you always listen to audiobooks that are available, but if you forget someday and you think, gosh, why don't they have any ebooks? It's because those preferences stick around. So keep that in mind. So that's the first thing I'm looking at is it a book or an audiobook? Other things, so there's this little clock on this icon that plus the place hold indicates to me that they're all checked out. If it was available right now, this would say borrow. And let's see. Trying to remember what I wanted to point out here. Yeah, so I'm just going to tap on the cover to see more details about the book. So as I scroll down, I can place my hold, read a sample. So that's a place where I could add a tag. This is a feature that you may or may not be interested in, but basically I can see what my tags are. I could indicate that this is going to be a book club book for me, and then I could find them faster that way later, or, you can ignore the tags altogether. Below that, you'll see the same kind of description and reviews that you would on the back of a book cover. It tells me it's also available as an audiobook. That matters to me. Got some publication information. And if you were really anxious to know how long it might take for the book to come in, this gives you those details about the number of copies and the holds so that you can decide whether you have to break down and buy it if you have a deadline for book club or something like that. This is another place where it tells us what types of formats are supported. So I can't imagine that you would browse a bunch of books and then scroll down and check if they were available for your Kindle. I think it would be smarter to set that as a preference first, but here's a place where you can just double check if you like. So that's looking at an individual ebook before placing it on hold or checking it out. Are there any questions about that part before I show you some browsing options? Okay, so that was the magnifying glass search option. Then we'll come back over here to the library card. So this is where you can have fun browsing for things that you want. There are these options at the top that are pretty powerful. So you can see what was just added or recently added. You could start by browsing what's popular. There's a good chance that those would require a hold, but if you don't mind, you might as well get on hold for popular things. You could get a random selection. It's kind of silly. But available now, I think is a good place to start. So let me just tap on that one to show you. It gives you an option right here at the top to limit by the type. So if you're in the mood to read an ebook that's currently available, everything here says borrow and has a plus sign because it's available right now for me to borrow. See, there are some kids' books mixed in here. If that bothered you and you didn't want to have to see those, you could come up to the preferences and the audience. You could choose general content. Mature content probably means it's an explicit romance novel or something more violent and adult. But you could get rid of the children's choices by switching to general content if you like. So that's the what's available one. The other one up here is subjects. If you just don't even know what you're in the mood for, this can be a good way to start browsing. So it breaks up both fiction and nonfiction topics, sort of mixes them up based on how many books we have that fit that category. But it could be a good way for you to remember, oh, well, I will browse the self-improvement section. And then these are all audiobooks. I can, tell it I just want books or whatever and see what my options are, that kind of thing. Okay, then let's keep scrolling down. So those options at the top are good. Then it gives us some guides. So this is just like a little section where you could get into a certain topic, and let me get rid of my preferences just in case. And they'll give some lists that are on different themes. Here's another list. So if you love mysteries, you might just enjoy hanging around in this page so that you see all of, some hand-picked options that might appeal to you. Coming back to the top, and then this left arrow to come back to the browsing page. So we'll go past those other guides. Here's another chance for me to set my preferences. And then there are some lists that are available that you might also browse. So sort of equivalent to a display in the library. Maybe something will catch your eye that you want to read. So those are the browsing options. Any questions about those? I'm going to find us an ebook to check out. I'll show you the checkout process, and then I'll show you how we navigate through an ebook, e-audiobook, and a magazine. So let's just find one that's available now. This one is a book, so I'm going to tap borrow. And it's very easy to want to hit this big borrow button, but this is an important moment to pause because this is your only chance to change how long your checkout period is. If you tap on where it says 21 days, you can choose from 1, 2, or 3 weeks. As far as I know, you can't change it after you've checked it out. So take a second and think about that. Normally, I'm a slow reader, so I always go for 21 days, but you can do what's right for you. And you'll see I already have 2 loans out. This is going to make it number 3. So it's just a reminder of how much space you have left. I like to watch this little circle. This is indicating that it downloaded the book automatically for me, and it's already downloaded now. So it's on my phone. I could read it offline, away from internet access if I wanted to. When it gets returned, it automatically clears it off of my phone, so I don't have to worry about that file size taking up space on my phone either. Let's see. There is a place where you can change those automatic download settings. I'll show you that right now. So if I come to my shelf, and my actions, no, sorry, I was in the holds. So at the start of my shelf, this actions lets me change my download rules. And so my default is to download everything automatically. But when I was leading this class last week, I checked out an audiobook and a really image-heavy graphic novel, and those did not automatically download for me. It acted more like this middle option where it only did the small files. So keep an eye on that if it's important to you that you don't have unlimited data on your phone or you're going to be someplace where you won't have internet. You might want to change these settings and then also just double check that things downloaded before you go on your car trip or whatever you're going to do. Okay, so since I am here on my shelf, I can see that Nomad Land is here as one of my loans. So let's go ahead and open it up. I'm going to tap Read With. This is another chance where I can pick if it's a Kindle or if I'm just going to read it here on the app. And it opens up. So I think I had this checked out before, which is why it took me to a page in the book. If I come back, actually, yeah, it has my bookmark too. So you'll see the book cover, and I'm just going to swipe. There's often a blank page, just like there would be as you open a book. That often can trick me because I'm used to the olden days when you might have to wait a minute for a web page to load. So if you feel like it's taking a while, just keep swiping, and there's a good chance that that it has already loaded. And so here we are at the beginning of this book. So let me show you all the controls here. If you tap in the middle of the page and tap again, oops, you can make the controls show up or go away. And let's walk through what I'm seeing. So right now I'm on page 8 out of 600 and some. That's a crazy number because it's so much smaller on my little phone, right? I can see my progress along here. These dark marks in the middle indicate the start of the book. This is maybe the start of the table of contents, and then here's the forward. This, if we come over to, whoops, so this one is probably chapter 1. Yeah, part 1. So it's giving me little signs so that I can try to navigate around successfully. The other things I see on here, the back button will take me out of my book, back to my shelf, or back for browsing. This letter A gives me some chances to change the appearance. So if you need the text to be bigger or smaller, you can control that here. Also gives me chances to change the lighting. So the default is bright, where it's black text on white background. Sepia makes it kind of brown. That might be easier on your eyes. And then, oops. And then the dark option is if you're reading in bed at night or in the car or something and you don't want to disturb someone else. There's some more options at the bottom that I don't normally use, but you might like to play around with. If you have dyslexia or if you have some specific notions about how the book should look, you could goof around and see if you can get some of those to work for you. I'm going to bring it back to the default appearance. The next icon here is a magnifying glass. This lets me search within the book. So I see the word million up here. If I search for the word million, it's going to give me every instance that that word is used in the book. So if you were trying to remember something that you saw, you could jump back to that section. And then this option here is going to remind me that I can use bookmarks and highlights. If you want to set a bookmark, it's this little icon here. I'm going to get rid of this whole banner, which is confused that I'm jumping around, right? It's trying to help me out, but I'm going to get rid of that for now. And if I tap this part of the bookmark, oops, this turns blue, and then you'll see that down on the chronology, it sets a bookmark down there as well. If I wanted to jump back to the earlier one, this is very tiny, but I can kind of try to tap maybe I can't. Yeah, I can tap at that little speck and it takes me back to my earlier bookmark. Any questions about how to move around in an ebook before we move on to the other formats? Okay, so like I said, I tapped in the middle to make my controls come back up, and I'm going to do the back arrow. So also on my shelf, I have checked out this audiobook. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'll open it in Libby. But before I do that, let me point out, this has a check mark that indicates that it has downloaded. Let me move up here. This book is downloaded. That book is downloaded. But this magazine, I have not yet downloaded. It's saying I could download it from the cloud if I wanted to right now. So that's just your place to check for that. But let's open this up. Audiobook, it's kind of similar looking format, but we'll walk through it. So I can press play. I hope I don't blast you with sound, but let's try that.
Random House Audio presents The Power of Habit.
Okay.
Why we do what we do.
Okay, so that's the audiobook has started. It tells me I've gone about 7 seconds in. I've made it 0% through the whole book, and I've got about 10 hours to go. It also moved along this bottom here. So I could do the same thing where I could jump ahead if I wanted to. And
would you mind describing again how you...
I could jump around if I want to. You also can move around by going back 15 seconds and forward 15 seconds. If someone interrupts you or you spaced out, you might want to jump back and catch back up. Here again, it can tell that I'm jumping around. This is my fingerprint of moving around in the book. So if you did something by accident, you accidentally ran your thumb along that bottom line, you could jump back to where you started or tell it to go away. And then along the top, same kind of options. I can go back to my shelf, but then this is new. I can control my speed that the sound plays. I know a lot of people who listen to audiobooks who do this, where they'll listen to it on 1.25 times, so it's a little bit faster and there's not so many breaks and you get through the book faster. You might want to try that if you like audiobooks. And then the fine tuning is new, I think. So if you really wish it was 1.3, if that's your sweet spot, you can make it go a little faster. I'm going to come back to normal speed and then I'll hide that option. The next feature along the top, the moon, is if you are listening before you go to sleep, you might want to tell it when to stop so that you don't burn through the whole book. This is another chance where it's telling me how to do bookmarks. And the bookmark icon here, as I tap it, it turns black at this moment and then it sets it down in my timeline. So I think those are the main features of the audiobook. You also should know that you could try to listen on smart speakers in your house or in your car if you've got, oh, I just did, I just bumped it. If you've got Bluetooth in your car or if you can attach by a cord, you should be able to listen to audiobooks on other formats. So if you have questions about how to make that work, please let us know, or you can do a search like, how do I play Libby audiobook on my Toyota whatever, and it should probably, you can figure out some steps. Okay, any questions about audiobooks before we go to magazines? I'm gonna go back. Okay, well, I'm going to show you how to browse for magazines since this is new, and I'll talk a little bit in general about them. So I mentioned at the beginning that Libby now has digital magazines for the first time, which is taking the place of RB Digital, which was formerly called Zinio, if any of that rings a bell. And so now our magazines are split between Libby and Flipster. So we'll take a look at the selection on Libby, which is pretty great and extensive. There's a couple different ways to reach the digital magazines. For the moment, they're still featured on this like home screen of the browsing section, but that might not always be the case. So if they aren't here, you can browse by going to what's available now, which they always will be available because there aren't hold lists for the magazines. And then at the top, you can choose the magazine format. And then if you wanted to, you could still try to refine your results by the audience, age group, or something like that. But basically, you can just scroll through here and see your options. You also could do a search for The Economist over in the search box if you knew that that was the one you were looking for. But let's just take a look at this one. So I tapped on the image and it takes me to the latest issue. And as I scroll down, this is going to look very similar to the books. I can choose to borrow it right now. Reading a sample is a little bit silly for the magazines, but you could, if you wanted to. You could add a tag if that mattered to you. Read a description, but then these are the articles for this specific issue. So if you're trying to think, do I even care about what I'm going to find? You could browse those titles of articles here. And then if you scroll past that, you'll get to the back issues. So you'll see that they're in date order. They're all available right now with these plus signs to download if you like. And you can keep tapping this down arrow. They go back a few years. I think a lot of them are 2018. So you'll see there's a lot of content in here for you to enjoy if you enjoy magazines. Coming back up to the top, I am going to borrow this one. You see, I get the same chance to determine how much time, but magazines are a little bit unique because you can renew them and there's no limit on the number of renewals. So if you felt like you wanted to spend a lot of time with a certain one, or there's a recipe or an article you wanted to keep referring back to, you could conceivably hang on to it indefinitely. But since they're always available, you can always let it be returned and check it out again. That's not going to do any harm. Remember that this will not count towards my loans. So this will remain at 3 and it won't impact anything like that. Same kind of thing. I'm watching this little circle to let it download. It's kind of a little bit slow right now. That's just the images can take a bit longer. I don't have to let it download though. I could tap in the middle and stop it and remove it. And then I'll just be not streaming, but I'll be reading it online using my Wi-Fi connection or my cellular data, right? So I can tap on the image, maybe. Well, let's let it download then if that's what it wants to do. Oh, yeah, okay. So open magazine is what I want to tap. And so I can stop the download and open this magazine. Sorry, that was covered up by the little message about notifications. So if I open it up now, what I will see is exactly the same as if you were flipping through it in person. So I'm going to tap in the middle to get rid of the controls and just show you that I'm going to swipe, and here's an ad, and here's another ad. And this looks like this isn't an article, but here's another ad, right? So this is exactly the same as your normal magazine experience. Let's get to a part. So here's the contents. Let's get to an article. Okay, so looking at this, this is very, very tiny. So I've got a couple of options for how to make it bigger. I can, use my fingers to expand it and zoom in on a section and move around and zoom in and out. Or as you'll see this icon show up, this makes it into a reading format. So it's going to show me everything from that page, but in a format that's easier to look at and is interspersed with the pictures at the right point. I also have some control over how this displays here with the letter A at the top. So if that's still not big enough, I can increase my text size. I can change the lighting to whatever I need. But I'll come back to the default here. Okay, so that's what we're looking at for the reading mode versus zooming in. If I tap in the middle of the page again, are my controls. So I get a little preview of each page along the bottom if you're trying to go back to something you already saw. It also gives me chapters. If I tap on that word, it's a breakdown of the articles or the sections of the magazine. So that might be another way to navigate around. I can see what page I'm at, of how many. And then up at the top, the zoom option here basically is like if you double tapped it to zoom in. So I can do that. It's basically the same as pinching or expanding with your fingers. The A is the appearance option that I already showed you. It's not going to change anything on this view because this is basically a photo or a PDF of the magazine. But if you're in this little reading view, it will change it there. The search option, same as for a book, you can search for a word and come back to it. And there's also bookmarks. One thing to watch out for with magazines that might take you by surprise is that there are sometimes links in here. Let me see if I can find one. Sometimes you'll just be swiping or trying to zoom in and you'll accidentally go to a link. I'm not sure that this magazine has that. So don't be surprised if suddenly you are opening up a new window or you're out into your browser. Just kind of be mindful about where you stick your finger so that you're not tapping on links. But they're usually sort of blue or it's obvious that they're a link. Okay, any questions about the magazines? The nice thing about RB Digital was that you could download a magazine indefinitely and it would be on your device within the RB Digital app. So this is different now, but it is pretty convenient that you can have as many as you want checked out at a time and renew them as often as you like as well. Okay, so once again, I'm going to tap in the middle and I'm going to go back to my shelf. Let's talk about managing your account in the shelf. So here's where I can see my 5 loans at the moment, but you can tell that it's 2 books, 1 audiobook, 2 magazines. So I still could have 2 more items checked out as books or audiobooks, and I would be within my limit. And let's see, so I haven't downloaded the magazine, but I have downloaded these other things. This is a chance that I can manage my loans. So if I tap on that, I could return the magazine early if I want to. Renewing is your option here. This only shows up, I think, within a couple days before the item is due. So you can't renew super early. You'll have to wait until that comes up. Reading journey is a little bit silly to me. It'll give you some stats on, this is not a good example. It'll give you some stats on how much time you've spent reading it. I picked it up 3 times. I read for 3 minutes total, and they predict how long it would take to finish. For most of your reading, that won't matter, but if you were trying to get through War and Peace or something and you needed some extra motivation, you might appreciate seeing that. And then share title, you could export the details about the book. And then here's another place where you can add tags. If you loved a book, you wanted to remember to come back to it later, you could make a tag for that. If you wanted to plan what you're going to read next, you can do that with tags. And then someone suggested to me that if you hit your limit of 10 holds and you want to keep making a list of things you want to read next, you could use tags as a way to make it easier to find those books later. The return early, I'll just show you this part. Sometimes it'll point out that someone is waiting for a book, and so it'll give you a little nudge that maybe if you're done, you should return it. As I returned this book early, someone had to point this out to me too, that you can tap on these flowers and it rewards you for your generosity of putting that book back into the world with a little bouquet. Let's see. I want to make sure I explain the renewal options. So if nobody else is waiting in line for a book, your book can be renewed. But I think you only, oh shoot. I don't think you can do it infinitely. It might be the same frequency as you can renew a physical book. So once or twice, basically. And just a reminder that you will not get the emails that you do for physical books reminding you that they'll be due in 2 days. Since this is a separate system, it's just not part of that. So if you want to make sure you get through your book, you'll want to keep attention on it for yourself. Okay. And then Kindle specifics. I think I already kind of covered this, but many of the books in Libby are compatible with Kindles, and so you would want to use that preferences bar, which is in the browsing section right here, to set your Kindle option for what's supported. And you could also let them know that you're going to be a Kindle user by going to your shelf. And at the top, there's the word actions. And you can set what you want to read books with here and keep a preference in there. But once you have checked out an ebook on Libby, you'll find it on your shelf and you can read with, and here's where you could choose Kindle. It will send it to the Amazon website where you can finish getting the book. If you have further Kindle questions, we'll handle them individually. But that's an overview. I have one more main topic for us, which is holds. So if you like new books or if you read series, you'll probably end up waiting on hold for something eventually on Libby. And so you may want to set up notifications in Libby to get the little app notification to indicate when your hold is ready. The place you can do that if you want is the little girl icon. And since I haven't set it up, it's here at the top. I can manage my notifications. But my default is to not allow notifications. You might want to scroll through here and see all of these options and pick what's right for you. I prefer an email, but you might like to get a little notice on your phone. The other way that you get alerted when a hold is ready is by email. And I have a little screenshot of what that looks like. So I'll just show you that really quick. They used to come from Digital Johnson County as like the sender, but that changed recently. So now the email sender is Libby by Overdrive. And the subject will start with hold ready and it'll give you the title. And then there's a link there as well that you can go straight into Libby to start reading the book. Let me switch out of this. I just wanted to make sure you knew what it looked like so you didn't disregard it as spam when when it came to you. There are some options that you have for the holds. So let's come back here to my shelf and look at my hold. Once a hold is ready, you'll have 3 days to either borrow it, cancel it, or ask for it to be delivered later. There is automatic rescheduling. So if you forget to act on a hold during that 3-day window, Libby will reschedule it for later delivery automatically. But that only happens once per hold. So if you forget to act on your hold a second time, it'll be canceled and they'll assume you're not interested in it anymore. The deliver later date is a new feature. I don't have an example that I can, well, maybe I can. If I manage hold, no. So let's say a hold was ready for me. It would show up here and I would have the choice if I wanted to deliver it later. Oh, actually, if I tap there, no, that's just details about it. So basically you can say that, you know, don't deliver this for another week or week and a half or something like that. If you need more or less time because you have other books you're reading right now, or it's not the right time for you, you can make that adjustment. And in order for that feature to work, they had to remove another option that people used to use, which was asking Libby to automatically check out your holds that are ready. So if anybody was used to it behaving like that, that's not an option anymore. You will have to act, you'll have to do something in order to get your hold checked out, just because these gentler options are new features that I think people will enjoy. Another option is suspending your holds. You would want to do this before they become available. So in the shelf under my holds on actions, I can suspend all holds. This is equivalent to freezing your holds in the catalog, if anybody has done that. If you're going on vacation or you have too much to read, you can, before your holds are ready, you can say, I don't want to get any holds for the next 2 weeks. And so you'll still maintain your place in the line. You just won't have it come ready for you during those times. So I'm going to go ahead and suspend for a few days and I'll update that. If I hide that and come back, you'll see for my hold that they're estimating it'll take 10 weeks for this to come in for me, but I do have it suspended for 4 days at least. So there's some ways that you can finesse those holds that are a little more elaborate now, but if you want to keep it simple, you'll just look for an email saying that it's ready and you can tap on it right then to download it. One last reminder, all of your Libby checkouts are returned automatically on their due dates, so you never have to worry about late fees or replacements. You never have to fret about getting them off of your phone so that your data is available or your storage space. Everything just gets taken care of for you. So if anyone has questions, I'm going to stop the recording, but the Libby website has lots of good help instructions, and you are always more than welcome to call the library, email us, or chat with us. We talk with people about Libby all the time, and we're very happy to get you started and get you using Libby well. Let me stop the recording.